is actually this idea of crossing barriers and boundaries and practicing hospitality, but you use that as a means of discussing diverse ministry as an embodied apologetic to our world. Why is diverse ministry an embodied apologetic to the world today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you see people who you would not otherwise expect gathering together under a common banner or for a common purpose or even just in a common place, it causes you to stop and say, what is it that's drawing these people to this place? If from an outside observer's perspective, there's nothing that would unify these people in the places they come from, the color of their skin, the preferences of their subculture, and yet they find themselves voluntarily occupying the same space, then there is something that causes you to stop and wonder and say, what is it that's drawing them together? And man, at this cultural moment, I think we as a church are at a wild advantage, because we would say that the breakdown of fellowship across racial lines, especially if it is driven by racism, is an example and an expression of something that we would identify as sinful. That racism is sinful, and we would affirm that. And our culture is recognizing right now that there's something wrong with racism. It's actually a very rare thing when you think about it, that the culture is agreeing with the church about something that would be an answer to the question, and what is wrong. So rather than for the culture's perspective, and I'm using the culture in a
general sense, yeah,
air quotes sort of way, those who would be outside of the church, who are identifying something as wrong that we would say is a consequence of sin, the broader culture is left without real resources to hope for some sort of a solution. I mean, there's all sorts of proposals of external ways to bring about justice, but there's an attempt to create a unity that the broader world doesn't have the resources to assume actually does fundamentally exist. In contrast to that, the Church of Jesus Christ is a group of people who, from across all demographic spaces, have a common faith that does knit them into a common family, weds them into a common vine, and therefore we actually say that ontologically, if I share the faith in the gospel with a brother who is from a wildly different context, we actually have an ontological unity that if there's division between us, we actually have a hope for creating or manifesting that unity, rather than having to figure out how do we cobble something together that really we don't know if it's even going to work out. We actually have the conviction that we're working from a fundamental unity towards that unity. And as we do that, we actually have the opportunity then to show the watching world who senses this is wrong, that we've got something that they don't have in a unity in Christ that actually gives us hope to see reconciliation.